Hidden History is brought to you by G2A.com and our supporters at Patreon. Since the very beginning, the Fallout franchise has produced incredibly ambitious games, with almost every new title becoming even larger and more impressive in scale. When creating those massive worlds though, not every concept is going to make its way into the final product, whether it's lack of time, lack of quality, or some combination of both. There is a huge amount of stories, weapons, and characters that can only be restored with mods, if at all. So, this week we're going to be spotlighting some of the cut content from the two most recent Fallout PC games, Fallout 4 and Fallout New Vegas. We'll start with Fallout 4, which actually has a pretty decent amount of content that will never be made into the game. One example is the quest 20 Leagues Under the Sea. You can find a few unused assets for the quest in the game files. Overall, not much is known about this underwater themed quest, but fans were able to piece together a few interesting finds. The story of the quest, according to some unused dialogue, appears to involve an underwater vault and a Chinese nuclear submarine. Also included in the quest was a harpoon gun that players could use, one that looks completely different from the version that would later appear in Far Harbor. Located at Hamilton Place, just off Tremont Street, the combat zone is one of the most unique locations in all of Fallout 4. But when fans first got access to the game, many were disappointed that there wasn't much actual combat in the combat zone. This was not always going to be the case though. Tommy Lonigan, the Fight Club's owner, was originally meant to have a much larger role in the game, and some of his dialogue left behind in the game suggests that he would have functioned as a betting bookie, allowing players to bet and battle to the death in a Thunderdome style combat. For unknown reasons though, this feature was completely dropped, leaving the combat zone feeling just a little bit empty. Moving on to New Vegas. One of the most notable exclusions from the game is the removal of two NPC types in Freeside, the beggars and the pickpockets. Probably intended to keep players on their toes while making their way through the slums of New Vegas, found in the files of the game is two pickpockets named Roger the Codger and Bitter Bob, giving us just a hint of what might have happened in the poorest area of New Vegas. Speaking of Freeside, remember Rotface? For those who don't, Rotface was a very talkative ghoul who knew more than his fair share of gossip and random information. Originally though, Rotface was going to have a little bit more to do. In fact, he was going to get an entire quest dedicated to him, where the player gets to decide his ultimate fate. The story of the quest was going to be that Rotface, newly rich of all the money that you gave him in exchange for information, would react one of a few possible ways depending on what the player said to him in the dialogue options. The first possibility is that he would have started spending cash like crazy, and attract too much attention from jealous local thugs, ending up dead. The second is that he would have worked up the courage to attempt to rob the player at gunpoint, which arguably wouldn't have ended too well for him either. A third option was that he would just leave Freeside altogether, but at the end of the day, it seems that Obsidian simply ran out of time to put any of this in the game, leaving a half-finished script in New Vegas' files, despite all of his dialogue being present. Now for our comment showcase. This week's comes from Mr. Gollum Hazine, who has a theory that the infamous pink goo found at the Suffolk County Charter School references a real-life incident, specifically an experiment that ran from 1946 to 1953 at an elementary school in Massachusetts. That was done by the US Atomic Energy Commission and the American oatmeal brand Quaker Oats. In the experiment, 73 mentally disabled children were fed oatmeal containing radioactive calcium and other radioisotopes in order to track how nutrients were digested. The children didn't know that they're eating radioactive material though. Instead, they were told by the teachers they were simply joining a science club. This mirrors the pink goo being fed to the kids in the game, also without the children knowing the full effects of what they were eating. As for the real world event, some of the now fully grown children were able to file a lawsuit in 1994. And although they never received an official apology from Quaker Oats or the US government, they were each awarded $60,000 in damages. On our last Fallout Hidden History, we asked you to share your weirdest gnome encounter from Far Harbor. And Hunter Henry supplied us with a very creepy encounter, saying, I was walking in the mist that day when the gnomes attacked. I saw a group of raiders, and I saw it. The gnome. and the mist got thicker, and the raiders were out of my line of sight. The raiders started shooting at something. The mist cleared, and all the raiders were headless. Now it's time for some trivia. Last week we asked you the name of Lucio's debut album in Overwatch, and their answer was B, Synesthesia Auditiva. This week our folate question is all about Far Harbor. What is the name of Merchant Alan Lee's sister? Is it A, Harmony, B, Darla, C, Sandra, or D, Tada? Tell me your answer in the comments section below, and if you have any other stories, they don't need to be gnome related, but they have to be folate related, do tell me them in the comment section below. Creepy or fun, just go wild. I'll see you guys on the next Hidden History.